How does one write a science fiction novel? Well, the answer to that question is very varied. You can write it however you want to, to be honest. And the same principles that you would use are applied to writing any sort of novel, whether it's romance or what's another one? Goodness, I can't think of anything. Fantasy or mystery. You would use those same principles pretty much to write a sci-fi novel. But today I just wanted to talk about my perspective from my experience of writing science fiction. How do I approach it? Honestly, sometimes I just have an idea. You know how you're like doing something random, maybe you're cooking or whatever, and all of a sudden you have this idea and you're like, whoa, that could be a novel. Sometimes that's what happens, and I just immediately drop what I'm doing and start outlining the book based on that one little seed of an idea. But then there are other times where I'm like, I want to write a science fiction novel. And I sit down and I think about, okay, what can I write? So that's what I'm going to talk about today, how I do that. The main things that I focus on are, when it comes to that route of writing sci fi, are the character, the main character, and the plot. So when it comes to the main character, I try to create a character who has a problem, but they also have great potential. Like maybe they have a hidden superpower, but they're too scared to use it. Why are they too scared? I investigate the why of why do they have this problem? Does it go back to their childhood? What happened in their childhood? And that's something we're going to explore later in the book. So that will kind of weave itself into the plot. But the main thing is when it comes to the main character, I think about okay, what is their great potential? Like, what are their great abilities and talents that need to be unlocked in this story? And what is the problem or the obstacle that is stopping them from really unlocking their potential? Also, do they have a dark side? Because maybe at the start of the novel, they're in their sad side where they're not really living up to their potential because of that obstacle. But let's say instead of unlocking their potential with goodness or good things, they unlock it with something that comes from a darkness in them. What would happen then? So I kind of think about those things to really understand who this character is, what's going on with them, what they want, what's wrong with them. And then I think about what I want the end, what I want them to be like by the end of the novel. How much do I want them to have grown? What how will they be once they overcome that obstacle? Are they going to turn into like the superhero that they were meant to be, or will they turn into the anti hero by the end of the novel because maybe they explored their dark side? So I try to think about the character, basically, is what I'm saying, and make them a fully formed person in my mind. And honestly, they're not going to be like a completely fully formed person in the first draft, but that's what I try to do. Try to think of someone who feels real, someone with real problems and real potential for growth. And then I have a plan for how they're going to reach their maximum potential. Because I usually like to write with a positive ending in mind. So usually I want my characters to have growth that brings them to like the superhero point by the end of the novel instead of the anti-hero or the villain. So I think about that. And then when it comes to the plot, I like to have like a very simple plot as the main thing. But then I love to have all these other little plots that kind of bolster the simple plot, if that makes any sense. So when it comes to the simple plot, I usually try to think about something in our real world that is happening, maybe politically or just like socially. Trying to think of a good example, like mm, something simple, like not simple, that's the wrong word. Like well, where I live, women get paid a lot less than men, and that's kind of a big deal when you're a woman. And you could take that and use that in like another world. Like say I decide, okay, I'm going to take that, but I'm going to use that, I'm going to expand that a little bit and change it. So instead of the plot being about This person wants to fight for women's, would you call it women's rights? I don't know. Wants to fight for equality. Excuse me, that's the right word. They want to fight for equality. Um, but let's not make it a gender issue. Let's make it mutants versus non mutants. And let's say this is Earth in 3054. So you see, I'm taking a concept that I'm very familiar with in my now, and I'm kind of stretching it a little, playing with it, putting it in the future, adding some alien or supernatural or sci-fi, whatever, um, seasoning to the gumbo pot. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say because I'm really like rambling a little. And then just kind of, once you twist it a little bit, that makes it science fictiony. And nobody would probably even really know that you got the idea from the problem that we have now of women not making as much money as a man. So that would be like my main plot. Maybe this one character who is a mutant, she has these really great abilities, but she has a lot of self-doubt because she's always been treated less than. Um, and to unlock her full potential, she has to learn to overcome her self-doubt so that she can fight for equality, for all mutants, and also just, you know, free herself of the restrictions that she's putting on herself. So that's like the main plot of the story. And then along the way, or as I'm starting to outline that, let me backtrack a little bit. So first I have the character in mind. And usually what I'll do is I get on my laptop and I write the character's name and then have a little space next to that where I type in everything I just said pretty much about her character trajectory, where I want her to start and end up. And then beneath that, I put main plot and I type everything I just said about the main plot. And then I start to actually outline the whole novel. That's just the way I do it. I go from chapter one to chapter whatever. Usually it's like about at least 22 chapters, usually for me. And in each chapter, as I'm outlining it, I start to realize what would be a nice subplot for me, some nice subplots to add to the story that would really harmonize with the main plot. Like maybe in order to overcome her obstacle, her self doubt, she has to face maybe a parent who abused her when she was a child. Sorry about that noise, my phone. So maybe she has to really figure out how to do that, how to navigate facing this abusive parent or someone else who was abusive in her past. And maybe another subplot is romance. Maybe there's someone who she's interested in, but she's never had the guts or the self belief to approach them with her feelings for them. And maybe that's something else she has to work through throughout the novel. So that's how I write a science fiction novel or how I approach it. I think about the main character first, then I think about the plot, and then I start outlining it and realizing how the main character's personality and background, how all of that adds little subplots to the main plot, and then weave them together and start writing. So that's it. But what about you? How do you approach writing a science fiction novel? Thanks for watching.